Hello. My name is Anna Slingerland, although most of you probably know me as Sling, Slinger, Sling Shady, Shady, Slingenheimer, Hash Slinging Slasher, or some other variation of the same. Today I'm sharing my Brooks story, which has been far from perfect. Flashback to the first week of school my freshman year. In the first chapel of the year, the senior prefect, Ani Belazarian, talked about her most painfully embarrassing moments at Brooks. She called these moments her Brooks cries. These stories were just what I needed to hear to ease my nerves. If this cool, clearly well-liked girl could drop a bra from a load of laundry in front of the senior football captain and still give a speech about how amazing her Brooks experience was, I'd be all right, right? This provided me with some short-lived confidence. Very short-lived. Soon after her speech, I discovered I, too, would have plenty of my own painfully embarrassing Brooks cries. So many, in fact, I started a list to keep track of them all. To begin, I was on crutches for the vast majority of my freshman year for various injuries. No new student wants to be pegged as that girl always hobbling down Main Street. The first time I found myself on crutches was in the winter. After much encouragement from AMAT, I decided to try out JV ice hockey. Big mistake. I promptly broke my ankle when Olivia Papapetros lightly nudged me from behind while I was standing in a passing line at practice. According to the other hockey players, I was the definition of a bender. A few days later, while crutching out of the day student locker room, balancing all of my books in one hand and hurrying to my next class, one of my crutches landed in a puddle of water. I was swept clear off my feet, landing squarely on my butt. This wouldn't have been so mortifying if it did not occur directly in front of Theo Papapetros, one of the most intimidating seniors, as well as all of his friends. I stood up quickly, trying to play it off like nothing had happened. Olivia told me Theo sent her a text later that day saying he was mad because now nothing would ever be as funny again after witnessing that. Embarrassing myself in front of upperclassmen emerged as a theme. As a day student my freshman year, I often hung out in Gardner, where a lot of my friends lived. I often wished I could be a boarder to become friends with all the cool upperclassmen. One day, I came running up the stairs from the link to Gardner and hid behind the stairs, waiting for Jinx, who was coming up behind me. As I heard footsteps approaching my hiding spot, I leapt from my crouching position with my hands outstretched, screaming, "Bah!" only to land 2 inches away from the face of the scariest senior girl, Madison Smith. To say she was completely confused and weirded out by a freshman she'd probably never seen before screaming in her face would be an understatement. While all of these embarrassing moments were horrifying to me, no one really knew me the first half of my freshman year. I was, and still am, a massive nerd, and spent the majority of my free time camped out in a cubicle in the library. All of this changed the night of the Super Bowl 2012. Shane threw a Super Bowl party at his house for which a group of students obtained the proper permissions to take a rented busette to Southborough. When the busette returned, pulling back into campus around 11 p.m., Dave, the security guard, leapt at the opportunity to catch some lost students. My dad was picking me up outside the gym, but he wasn't there yet. When approached by Dave, who sternly asked me my name, I panicked. I assumed I would get in big trouble for being on campus late, and I've always been afraid of getting into trouble. My face turned red, my eyes widened, and I choked out a name I completely made up on the spot, Riley Jackson. For the record, I do not support identity theft, and I immediately regretted this lie and would continue to regret it for the remainder of my time at Brooks. This regret is in part because I did not realize that Riley Jackson was the name of a junior who I had never spoken a word to. When my friend pointed this out as Dave walked away, I wanted to shrink into a dark hole and never show my face again. In order to understand the absurdity of the situation, I would like everyone to take a moment and try to imagine the real Riley Jackson being told by Mrs. Hines that this past weekend, a student you've never heard of tried to tell Dave that they were, in fact, you. Luckily for me, Riley was a remarkably nice junior who accepted my lengthy apology and was even my twin for Twin Day during Spirit Week. News like this travels like wildfire at Brooks. I hoped and hoped everyone would forget about it, but it was brought up again at school meeting when the Art Association put it into one of their videos. The whole room burst out into applause and laughter as I slowly shrunk down in my chair, wishing I could disappear. While I look back on this incident now and laugh, this experience, as well as many, many others, made me feel completely isolated my freshman year. Plain and simply, I felt like I didn't have a place at Brooks. Many of the girls in my grade lived in the same dorm and grew very close very quickly. I spent more time studying than I did trying to branch out and make friends, and as a result, I decided Brooks wasn't the right school for me. I applied out of Brooks to Exeter and was set on transferring until spring break, when I had to make a final decision. I could either stay at Brooks and decide to change my mentality about who I was and what my role was in the community, or I could blame my mistakes and my isolation on the school. The second choice was tempting. It would have been pretty easy to move on, pretending like my freshman year at Brooks was just a bad nightmare. But the truth of the matter was, Brooks wasn't the problem. The problem lay in the way I thought of myself. I had absolutely no confidence in my abilities or my character. I let one mistake discourage me and make me try to run away from something that would have just followed me to the next school. This self-reflection was one turning point in my time at Brooks. Clearly, I chose to remain at Brooks, and I can say with absolute certainty that this is the best decision I have made. I came back to school with a new mindset and much-needed confidence. My newly acquired optimism and positivity allowed me to make some of the closest friends I will have in my life. It is amazing how much your attitude can affect outcomes. The second turning point came towards the end of my sophomore year. First, you need to know I am highly competitive. Mr. Ulrich eloquently described me in an email as, quote, one of the most quietly but burningly competitive folks he's ever met. I don't know how much my peers would agree with the quietly part of his description, but they've definitely experienced my competitiveness. I didn't speak to Michael Flanagan for more than a week after he killed me in Assassin. I am that one kid who does the optional hour-long challenge problem just for an extra point before a test. Before deciding I'm just annoying, let me explain the root of my competitiveness. I grew up with a criminal prosecutor as a mom and two extremely accomplished older brothers. I am the baby of my family with a 7 and 10-year age gap between my brothers and I. My mom is by far my biggest role model. She has worked for over 25 years with victims of rape and abuse, as well as with families of victims who had died. My mom never liked to talk about her cases, but my brothers and I would badger her to tell us what she was currently working on because we found her job so cool. I will always remember watching her on TV when I was 8, as she fought for justice for a girl my age who was killed in a fire started by a woman who was trying to kill somebody else. I was so proud of my mom. Most of the time, my mom does her best to separate her work from her family. But this was the rare case when my mom came back from work and cried because she had lost the trial. She described having to talk to the father who had just lost the one thing he loved most in the world, and how responsible she felt for not getting the justice him and his daughter deserved. My mom takes winning seriously because the alternative has major effects on others' lives. A large part of my sense of motivation and competitiveness has stemmed from watching my mom's example. My mom played a similar role in my brothers, who are both very hardworking and motivated. My oldest brother, Ben, was All-American and Gatorade Player of the Year in high school and went on to play 5 years of soccer at Georgetown. My other brother, Eric, who Ben and I often refer to as the Golden Child, won every possible award at Exeter and went on to play soccer and lacrosse at Harvard. Eric is the Golden Child because not only is he an amazing athlete, but extremely kind and generous. He is now living in Taiwan, teaching underprivileged children English. Anyway, having these 3 role models, and my dad, who was a debt collector, but still great. As I grew up, I developed an intense competitive streak. I often compared myself to them and aimed to prove I was just as great as my brothers. I assumed this would be through sports. I spent most of my time in middle school playing field hockey, soccer, basketball, and lacrosse, with a main focus on lacrosse. My freshman year of lacrosse at Brooks was going great until one of the last practices where I pivoted and hurt a large crack. My ACL and meniscus were torn. I was devastated. While others have come back even stronger from the same injury, I sat on the sidelines for my sophomore year field hockey season and was moved from starter to sub during lacrosse season. I had to wear a full-length knee brace that creaked in the rain, and I was promptly given the nickname Robo-Leg. I had thought I would be just as strong as I was before, but I soon found out I lacked the speed and agility I had before. I grew increasingly angry and negative. I spent way too much time questioning why this had happened and feeling sorry for myself, and as a result, was really unhappy. When I retore my meniscus my junior year, I had to make a decision. I could either continue to live this increasingly angry life, or I could refocus my energy. After much self-reflection, I decided that I didn't want to invest all of my time and energy into trying to get back to who I once was. At first, letting go of sports, such a huge part of my identity, was hard. It felt a lot like losing. However, after I truly accepted that sports wasn't all I was good at, I became the best version of myself. I found my element in school and developed a passion so much stronger than sports for science. Without summer sports, I had time to get a job at a doctor's office where I developed a goal of becoming a doctor. At school, I got more involved with opportunities I never paid attention to before. I joined the peer tutoring program and went on the Apple internship. I'm still competitive, but now I compete to learn as much as I can to be the best doctor I can be. I want to make a positive impact on the lives of others, just like my mom. To be clear, I am not anti-sports now. My experience with Brooks Athletics taught me more about myself than I could have ever imagined. In fact, after my change in attitude, I started to have so much more fun on my sports teams than ever before, except for the time this fall where I projectile vomited in the middle of a field hockey game in front of a large crowd. I stopped playing for myself and started enjoying what is really special about sports, being part of a team. During my time at Brooks, I've learned not to take yourself too seriously. Being competitive isn't a bad thing. It often is a source of motivation and hard work, and can serve the greater good. However, it becomes unhealthy when you cannot pause and take a moment to laugh at yourself from time to time. My mom used to tell me that you can't control everything that happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. While I used to roll my eyes at this, I've recently come to appreciate this message. I think back to those memories freshman year and how they affected me in the moment. My freshman year self never would have imagined I would be exposing all of my Brooks cries in front of the whole school. But that's because my freshman year self never would have anticipated how drastically I would grow over the course of 4 years. So I guess my final words of wisdom are to take a deep breath. Your time at Brooks will inevitably consist of extreme highs and lows. But if you surround yourself with the right people and consciously decide your attitude, the lows will make the highs that much sweeter. Thank you.